Hello and welcome to this video demonstrating a scripting API for Anno 1800. I've for a while now worked on a small scripting engine that will work with the game, and the way it works is that there's a process injecting some code into the game that will search for certain code that allows us to query some of the game state and to invoke some functions in the game. So I have here a small demonstrative save game with a main island. In this case we have the main island Müsli with all the first populations here, so we have farmers, workers and artisans, and they're mostly self-sufficient, and they can provide most of the resources they need themselves. But we have reached a point where we would like to construct some steel beams and advance the levels of constructions on the island. So in this case I have settled another island, Tiny, which is meant to only produce industrial goods for construction. And so since the Tiny island is small, we need to conserve the space, and we can't have farmland production and such. So there's only workers here to drive these industrial buildings, and so we need to ship all the goods that will make the workers happy. And if we check what makes the workers happy, it'll be fish, working clothes, sausage, bread, soap, and schnapps and beer. So if we set up this with a regular trade route in Anno, this could get quite hairy quite quickly, because we'd have to define these two islands, and we have to find some sort of rhythm to the trade routes where they don't end up having to wait for too long for resources, end up having to dump them in the harbor, or get stuck and such. So it'd be nice to have a more dynamic system that is based on what are the actual supplies and demands between the two islands. And this is where the scripting engine comes into play. As mentioned, it's a scripting engine that hooks into the game code, and it will then provide some high-level functionality to Python. And I have here a small Python demo script for this exact purpose. And we can see here that we're importing the Anno scripting module, using it as Anno. And if we see throughout the code, there'll be various calls into this module that will be eventually propagating function calls and queries into the injected code. And the way this script will work is that we define our two islands, Tiny and Müsli, and we define what they export and what they import. And in this case, it's a fairly simple and straightforward relationship. We have Tiny importing all that it needs for the workers to be happy, and it's importing enough to make the basic construction. And it will export beams and weapons, but in this case only beams, because there's no weapon production. And Müsli is exporting and importing the reverse of what Tiny is importing and exporting. And so there's a main loop that will check which ships are available. It'll check what are the stockpiles on each of the islands, and based on that it will check if there's a supply and demand that can be satisfied with a shipment. If it can do that, it will create a new delivery and assign a ship to this particular delivery. So instead of having a fixed relationship where you just have one ship going back and forth with a predetermined path, here we will check what is available, what is needed, and which ships can perform which actions. So if we come into a regular console and we type just regular Python executable, and then the script is called autotrader.py. If we run this, oh right, we need to run the scripting engine code first, then this should work. Yeah. So it detects that there are 3 schooners in the old world. It detects that 3 of them are doing nothing. And the first thing it does is it makes a shipment of schnapps and fish from Muesli to Tiny. And if we check on Tiny, we should see, what was it? Sent schnapps and fish. So there'll be these 2. Yep, we could definitely use some more of those. And then it sends a shipment of sausage. Would probably have been smarter to ship some working clothes, but that can be fixed in the Python code. And then we're seeing a shipment the other way around, so from Tiny to Muesli, sending beams, and that is the exact purpose of this island. So we'll see the schooners that it decided to use here. This one is bringing down the schnapps and the fish. This one is probably going to pick up some beams, and we should see this one is going to send off some sausage from Muesli to Tiny. And we can check on the script again and say, well, now we can't make any more shipments because all of the ships that we have available in this world are occupied. And here comes the shipment of beams. This one is about to load off the schnapps and the fish.
We assist however we may.
Let's see. Yep, so it got to offload those 2 resources.
Schooner reporting.
Then the sausages are coming in. And now we can see there's one free ship, the one that just offloaded the schnapps and the fish. And it'll probably be scheduled for a cloth delivery next iteration round. No?
New orders.
Maybe this iteration? There's a 15 second delay between each of the ticks, because it ideally wouldn't need to check up very often. Okay, so a shipment was made. Yep, so now it picked up on basic clothes. And the Python script that drives this is definitely not in a perfect condition, but most of the issues that are with the trading API, with the trading route system, could be fixed in this Python code. So the idea is that the Python code would provide a pretty flexible way of defining how you want to send shipments between your islands. And we see there's a new shipment for fish and schnapps.
I'm confident it's ready to go.
Yeah, I'll leave links for the code in the video description, and thank you for your attention.